Crooked River, Chapter 23. I knew by the whispering sound of the crowd that the tomahawk was exactly the one the blacksmith had described, exactly the one he had made for Indian John, and the same one that had been found in the trapper's head. Stinging tears began to fill my eyes, and a lump rose fast in my throat. "Is this the pipe tomahawk you recollect making?" I heard Augustus Root say loudly, and the blacksmith did not take more than a half-second to examine it before I heard him answer that it was. "Could you show us the person you made it for?" the lawyer continued. The blacksmith stood up and pointed his finger. My heart sank to my feet. "That Indian is who I made it for. That one sitting right there," he said in a voice that was sure as anything. Some in the crowd wanted to see Indian John hanged without hearing another word. A man with a face full of pox scars waved his arms at the judge and hollered out, "You heard what that Nichols fellow said? Just hang the savage from this big tree right here and be done with it." I looked up at the wide oak tree above us and held my arms across my sickening stomach. "Silence!" As the crowd clapped and cheered, Judge James R. Noble pounded his mallet so hard on his table, I expect it probably made circles in the wood. "I am the judge of this state of Ohio," he bellowed when the crowd grew quiet, "and I don't give a pickle damn who you want to hang or when." He leaned across the table, his face as red as clay bricks, and stared furiously at everyone. "You will not, by the laws of the United States or the ones written by God himself, hang anyone until I give the word that justice is done." The judge gestured towards poor Mr. Kelly, and said that he had every right to take his turn, even if the Indian was as guilty as a fox in a henhouse. "Every right," he repeated, and glared at the crowd. But I could tell that there wasn't enough time left. Nearby fields the cows were beginning to bellow for their milking, and there was a day's worth of chores still left to do. So the judge said the trial would conclude for the day and resume the next morning. The crowd grumbled as they began to pick up their sundry collection of chairs and benches. "Ain't nothing left to try," I could hear people saying to each other. Guilty as guilty is," they mumbled. "Waste our time listening to nothing. Just hang 'em." Me and Laura kept our heads down as we walked back to the cabin with Mercy. I felt plain shaken inside. I didn't know what to think in my mind. I tried to reason that perhaps Mr. Nichols was mistaken, or that the trapper had been killed by another tomahawk, exactly like the one the blacksmith had made. But Mr. Nichols was the only blacksmith we had, and who would recognize a tomahawk better than him. Laura looked over at me. "You feeling as dreadful bad as I am?" I nodded. "I just feel so sorry for Peter Kelly." Laura's voice wavered. "I think he must have believed every word Indian John told him. They were friends, and so he thought—" Her voice trailed away. "Yes," I said, low, scuffing my feet along the hard wagon ruts of the road. "What will Mr. Kelly say tomorrow?" she whispered. "Or do?" I couldn't imagine what Mr. Kelly would do the next day, or how he would prove the blacksmith wrong. But the rest of the evening my mind kept repeating the words he had said to me. "I will win." Even though it didn't seem likely that Mr. Nichols would be mistaken in front of God and all those men, I could not give up on those words, no matter what everybody else, even Laura, thought to be true. My mind still held on to, "I will win."